determine what's going to best suit your needs. As we look at this, as we look at those styles on that general tab, you know, we've got, as I mentioned, we've got butt welded, self-draining, flanged, mixed units. We've got those available fittings, and this will change depending on the type of style. If we go into a flexible hose, we have a start fitting and an end fitting, and the type of hose that we're going to be using. On the rules tab in settings, we see some different rules. Our minimum segment length, our maximum segment length, there is one. What kind of increment can we go between? So if we're setting up rigid pipes, you know, what kind of definition can we what kind of distance can we determine? When we have flexible hose or bends, what is our bend radius? So if we've got some tubing, we have a minimum bend radius for the different types of tubing or flexible hose. Some of it will have a specific bend radius as determined by the manufacturer. So we can set all of those rules up. And then we have some required settings if we're going to make our own custom styles. There has to be a name, and with that, we don't have to add a category, but we may want to determine if we're in our rigid pipe. We're going to determine whether it's butt welded, self-draining, flanged, and as we determine what pipes, couplings, elbows, so on and so forth, what fittings need to be added here, we can simply right-click in the family area, select Browse, and that will take us into the Content Center to begin to select those different fittings and pipes or tubes that we need. We can save this. There's a few different options for saving these, and additionally, there's a number of fittings in there, but certainly not all of them. Parker, for instance, has a decent library with Inventor, but there are dozens, if not hundreds, of types of fittings just from Parker alone that are not included in the Content Center. So we can get those, and we can author those to go into the Content Center and be used for tube and pipe. That's definitely something we would cover in a class. It's not a terribly complicated process, but we certainly can go through those. All right, so demo time. See if we can't put something together here. This is going to be probably short and sweet for you guys. Let's see. So what I have is just a simple assembly here, and we're going to do a couple of different things. We'll put a rigid pipe on this little simple sub-assembly here, and then we'll add some flexible hose, and I'll show you some settings that 2019 include, something new for 2019 this year. When you do these, of course, we've got this this set up here as a sub-assembly. So one would think, okay, well, let's just go ahead and edit that and add in our tube and pipe. Well, as we look at that, as we go into the edit option and we switch to environments, notice that tube and pipe is grayed out. We have to actually be in the assembly itself. So let me return out of that. Let's go ahead and open this guy. And now we can go into our environment and we can add tube and pipe. And in this case, actually, I've already got one in here where we started with some beginning fittings. So let's just go ahead and edit this guy. And we'll edit this this first run here. What I'm going to do, and this is really just the beginning. Once you have your, especially with rigid pipe, you have your beginning fittings, your end fittings. You start out with a new route. Obviously, I talked about giving that route a specific name, something that's going to be easily identifiable for you. We'll go ahead and get our route started by picking the Create Route tool here. And I'm just going to pick on this front end fitting. Now, I have the ability to come down and select a location for my next bend if I want to. I can simply right click, enter a specific distance if I so desire, or I can come over and pick my end fitting and let this essentially auto route. So it will show me a path that the tube or pipe is going to take. And I can go through and look at the different options here just by selecting my Select Other tool. And then when I'm happy with the automated setup, I'll go ahead and click OK. And I could at this point just simply finish the route itself. And this will allow me to populate that route. And we can see here that it lays those in. Now, I did notice that I really wanted to make a change to the style that I'm using for this route. So I'm going to edit that again. Let's see if we can do that. And I'm going to change to this JISG setting here. Let's do the threaded, and we'll finish that. And it does update. You'll notice that the fittings are a little bit smaller. Different set of fittings in here, and kind of tied with our original fittings. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show you guys is that you can, even after a route is placed, go ahead and come in and grab another fitting and add that in if you so desire. I'm going to grab in this JISB fitting here. I happen to know from our settings that this particular style is 1/2 inch, and I'll select OK. And notice that as I hover over this, it will automatically just line up with the existing pipe. And I'm going to place it down here. Notice that I get this this little triad, and easily enough we can adjust our angle simply by dragging on that. We can pull that over, but I can also set a given distance. And as we look at the yellow axes here, I can see that this is 0 point from this side, and I come out, and if I switch over to the other side, now I'm measuring from this end. So as I come down, if I want to, I can type in a specific distance just from my right click, and we'll do 300 millimeters there. Click OK. And that will slide over. Let's see, we'll go ahead and select done here. And what I actually have are 2 separate pipe segments. It did separate that for me. If I come back and say, you know what, I don't want that fitting there, I'll go ahead and delete that. And that did not work out the way that I wanted it to. Let's hit an undo here. Let's see, let's select that fitting, and I believe, there we go. That works out a little bit better. Thank God for undo. We'll slide that back over. Notice that single pipe does go back to just one piece, so it cleans all of that up for us. I'm going to go back to my my overall assembly here, and let's hit an update and make sure that that's all good. And let's go ahead and add in a flexible hose here. Again, we go into the tube and pipe tool, and I'm going to create my own this time. Again, giving the names and locations as we talked about. Now I want to come in and select my style. So I'm going to go into my style box here first, and I look and I notice that the style that I want is not actually there. Now I could create my own like we talked about. This particular one is no fitting, so if I wanted to put fittings in first, then I could just add a hose in between those. But what I've got is one that was already created for me, and I'm going to go ahead and import that. And this is, if you've ever imported a style into the style library, whether that's a drawing style, dimension style, text style, something like that, or you know, sheet metal style, something to that effect. It's really the same process. We're just pulling from an XML file. I've got it set out there on the desktop, and it shows me the one that I'm bringing in. So it's a 3/8 diameter swivel, 0 errors. And now I can come out, and sure enough, there's that style, and I'll just right click and make that active, and we'll select close here, and notice that it is indeed active in my settings here. So I'm going to start with my new route. We'll click OK, and once again with the route, and because this style has a fitting, a start fitting and an end fitting, it'll let me select that. I can start here, and we'll see if we can get this one to behave for us. If it comes in wrong, we'll try the space bar. Let's see if we can get that to flip. There we go. Just hitting the space bar lets us flip that around. Now you'll notice that this goes right through that beam. Well, obviously we don't want that to happen. So what we can do with our flexible hose is create an offset point, and we're going to offset from a surface. So I want to offset from this surface, but I want to be more than just that 9.25 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that. We'll set that at 75, and let's pick a spot right about here. And now I've got that that flexible tube line, that spline, off my table there. So once again, I can finish my route. I can go ahead and populate that route, and it will show this in here. Let me go back in and edit this just a minute. Let's see here. One of the things that we can do with 2019, we have the ability to actually lock the hose length. So the way that flexible hose has worked in the past, it will draw this spline, and if there's any motion, any movement, it would actually grow. That spline would grow with the movement. Well, that's not true life. So what we can do is actually lock that distance, and I'm going to go ahead and select apply, and now we're given a dimension. We'll say OK here, and I can actually come in and change that dimension. I can put in millimeters, I can put in inches if I want to, whatever distance I decide I want. And if you put in something that is just not going to work, it will let you know that's not going to work. So we'll go ahead and finish that route, and we can then see that this has indeed updated, and it has changed. So honestly, guys, there's really nothing difficult about tube and pipe. It's primarily get your style straight, determine what you want to do. If if you've got something that's close, you need to change maybe the OD. You can go ahead and copy that particular style. You can take then and give that a different name if you want to. You can, this one's got the copy one, so we could add something different on here. Maybe we want, 3/4, something to that effect. We can type that in, and we can edit those, and then come in and change our diameter. We can change our schedule. We can change our material if we want to. And once again, changing the segment rules. It's really about setting those up. Now, I will say a lot of times we get the question, well, how do we make that? How do we share those additional styles with everyone? And that's a great question. When you do those, of course, you can export those and share them out individually, which was how this was done. It was exported out, and then I imported it into our use here. The other option in your design file, in your design styles folder, so our default settings here, let's see, users, public, And let's go public documents, Autodesk, and in my case, Inventor 2019. And let's see, design data and tube and pipe. Inside of here, you have the pipingruns.iam. If you have a shared design style, you can actually open up this assembly, set up your styles in this assembly or import them into this assembly, and everyone will have access to those. So that is the way that we would share these things. Probably the best way, as opposed to the export import. This way, at least, it will carry through for you if you need it to. So that was shorter and sweeter than I thought it was going to be. Actually, Mark, I'm actually at a point where I'm ready for questions here.
All right. So far only got 3 coming in.
Okay.
And does the Inventor 2018 have the locked hose length? No, unfortunately, that is new for 2019.
Right.
Which Inventor versions have the tube and pipe add-in? That is all versions of Inventor Pro. Back when Autodesk made the switch, back around the what was it, 2011 release, 2012 release to the suites, Inventor tube and pipe used to be available, but then it was just Inventor and Inventor Pro. So any version of Inventor Pro would have the tube and pipe modules available. If you're still working with a 2008 tube and pipe, 2009, 2010 tube and pipe, it would still be there. But since the 2012 time frame, all Inventor Pro has the tube and pipe, the dynamic simulation, the routed systems, all of that inside of it.
Certainly, and I see John is talking about the sloped pipe runs. That is, let me go back to that. That is simply this this setting, I do believe, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, this self-draining setting here. So if we were to go to edit that, we would simply click the self-draining setting, and that creates those gravity-fed runs.
Yep.
Let's see. And Mike asked if there were any changes to the drawing environment. Mike, I'm assuming you're just talking about with regard to 2019. On your Get Started tab, you can go into what's new, and even if you have a release that is not 2019, it will still show you all of the possibilities here. So you can go in and look at what's new for 2019. I don't think there were drastic changes. Were there, Mark, for the drawing environment itself?
Just depending on the release you're coming from. The view cube is now there on the drawing side. The drawing environment itself for 2019 now only updates components that have physical updates pending in the background instead of redrawing all the views. So if you have 7 views on the drawing, 2018 and older releases, it's constantly refreshing all 7 instances of that model that's referenced in those views. When 2019, it's only re-rendering all of the components that have outstanding edits. So there are some updates there as far as making the drawings work faster, but as far as overall graphics that you would see, it still looks the same. It's just some changes they made in the background.
Absolutely. Let's see here. And I want to edit this run. And delete the route here. Okay. So Andrew's asking to demonstrate basically creating a custom route as opposed to the auto route. Not that much different. Like I said, we would start with the route tool, pick our point, and then we can come out, and right here I would enter a distance. So maybe I want to come out, let's see, let's do 4 inches, and let's try, there we go. And I'll hit my check mark, and then I get another triad, and this allows me to do some kind of neat things. Actually, I can begin to adjust this angle if I want to. I can pull that down. I could stop right here and say, okay, I know that I want that at least that 4 inches, and now I'm going to come over and go to my endpoint, and it would just auto route to my accepted point. Or I could come out here a given set of or a given distance and do the same thing. If I know the angle, then I can adjust that angle. Let's see here. I think I can even type in a custom angle or a custom bend right here if I so desire. So just a simple right click and, you know, enter a positive, negative degree. I think this in this case is negative. And nope, it was positive, so I'm going to go back and re-enter that. Let's do 7, and I think that's going to bring me back to 0. Let's do 7 one more time. So there is a little bit of trial and error, shall we say, with some of this. Again, enter in our distance. Oh, John says we can't see what I'm doing here. You guys cannot see my screen?
I can see where you're working at there.
Okay.
Maybe the GoToMeeting dialog box is overshadowing it. Maybe pan over to your left some.
Let's see here.
There you go.
Is that better? There we go. So just altering the angle, and then again adding in a distance if I want to. And let's see, let's do 5 inches. I could stay with millimeters. This is obviously a millimeter assembly. And once again, this is all just how far do I want to go out. I could route this all the way manually. Quite frankly, when I do this, if I'm having to do manual, I'll do it based on, okay, I need to have some clearance here, and then I'm going to get to a point, and then I'll come over and set this up and see if we're going to get what we need. And once again, I can kind of cycle through the different settings to see what might work out. So not very complicated. It's all just a matter of the time that you want to take. Let's see. Any other questions? This one was way faster.
Looks like we've got the majority of them answered, if not all of them that are currently in.
Okay.
There's one question there by Craig. Would tube and pipe be added to Fusion 360? At this time, not aware of any changes to incorporate that into 360. That could be requested through the Fusion 360 Idea Station website, where users can go in. It's kind of their wish list and say, hey, I'd love to see this. And the more likes and kudos it gets, the more likely you are to see that in a future update. Yep.
And 360 is being developed constantly. It's a very neat tool. Can you define and use a custom flexible tube with variable wall thicknesses? I'm not aware with the variable wall thicknesses are what's throwing me off there. I'm not aware that we can. Mark, what do you think?
I don't believe so. I don't think that functionality is there yet. It requires some testing to verify, but I don't believe it's there with the variable walls.
Okay. Let's see here. And work with MBD. I'm not quite sure.
The model-based definitions, starting with the Inventor 2018.3, assemblies are supported. So yes, once you've got the tube and pipe put on there, you could do your annotations with the MBD tools.
And Anya, yes, when you if you've placed a rigid pipe and decide, you know what, I want to go to flexible tube. It does depend a little bit on how you started that. If your original fittings were of the rigid pipe type, then pretty much, yeah, you'd want to delete and start over because you have to have fittings for the flexible tube. I suppose if you replace those, when you do rigid pipe, it does essentially require, they don't have a start fitting or an end fitting, so it does essentially require that you put those in first. So if you decide, yeah, I want to switch to flexible tube, you could replace those original fittings and then possibly either delete your route and start over, or change that style. You can switch that over. Let's see. Yes, that Craig, that thickness setting for tube and pipe, that schedule setting is in the styles box here. So down here in the bottom, you've got the schedule. In this case, it's got the JISG. So if you're on the ANSI SME, you've got schedule 40, schedule 80. I think some of these go up to the higher schedules. Let's see. I thought, is there a schedule 150 too?
If you have it loaded.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go in, and then obviously you would edit these and change to. There's 120. That's what I was thinking.
120. Yeah.
So you can add those in. Does it do support points and requirements for mechanical work? You can lay out points first if you want to, Steve. If you know your point locations, you can lay those out in your assembly, and then basically selecting your path, a manual path, selecting each one of those points. That would work. That was kind of the way that that's the old way of doing things, really. The way that tube and pipe used to work in the beginning required you to have axes and points along the way. The larger pipe, yes, indeed, would have the higher schedules. Thank you, Craig. Any other questions? Let's see. Custom hose diameters, pretty much the same way. You would come in and select, kind of what you want. Like I said, these are pretty well based on Parker fittings. So if there's some other type of fitting that you're going to be using, that's something you'd want to bring in. You might go into your no hose fitting here and then either edit or copy and make your own, create a new one, however you want to do that. But you can come in here and change your diameter settings right here. Quarter all the way out to 2 inch. And then once again, I know that I had done some Parker fittings that needed to fit within a thermal environment. So we had some pretty interesting hoses there. And basically all I did was give it the name that was appropriate to the hose that we were purchasing. And then I came in and gave it a color, essentially, to separate it out based on the manufacturer spec. So that worked out okay. And Revit export, does the BIM recognize that data?
If you go through the BIM simplification tools, yes, but you do have to run it through that environment.
There are none listed other than this is the out of the box setup, Steve, for these hose types. So if you wanted a pneumatic hose or just some of that clear tubing, something like that, that is something you'd have to create yourself. Anything else? These are all great questions. No, not terribly hard to do, Steve. You could, again, you select something, we say new, and what is going to be, you don't have to do a start fitting and an end fitting here if you don't want to. Your pipe, you right click, select browse, and this will come through and give you a number of options for your different tubing. Now these are pipe results. Let's see here. I think we've got flare tubes. I don't remember if I saw, for instance, like the clear grease tubing. You've got Parker hydraulic hose, no skiv, so you can add those in, and then you can change these. Just because you select this type doesn't mean you're necessarily having to buy this type, because you're going to give it a name, so you can change it and tell it it's going to be translucent. You can call it whatever you want to, just because they're calling these. That's not necessarily forcing you into that. Does that make sense? And does the lock hose include the fitting as an overall length? No, I do not believe it does. It is strictly the start location of the hose to the end location of the hose. So you would have to take those fitting links into thought process as you were determining that overall length. Yes, they will. And it depends on that movement and the settings that you've got. As we placed those hose, or this hose, I had set a defined offset point from this face. So the rules determine that my bend radius has to be within a given radius, and I think that's 1/2 inch on this particular hose. And I also have to meet up with that offset point. So for instance, and I did this one a little bit earlier, we can break this simply by having that as defined. And if I say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and finish my my edit here, and I want to move that bulkhead. So I've got that bulkhead set at a 340 millimeter offset. If I change that to, say, 240, well, all of a sudden my hose breaks. And the reason that my hose breaks at this point is I've got this locked, I've got that distance locked, and I've got this point defined. So I would have to go in and basically undo this, unlock that hose. I can still keep my defined point, but then make my movement, and this hose would stretch to a new length. Once you have this determined, if you have a situation where you've got mechanisms moving, it should, and I've not tested this one out, but it should stay at that length and adapt to that movement itself. In this case, I think it's probably because of this defined point more than anything that this is holding in place. Let's see, into the bending properties. What other materials can you input into the bending properties of that material? Michael, are you talking about the flexible hose or tubes? Let's see here. Flexible hose, okay. I do believe, and I don't know, let's see, let me undo this just a minute. Let's go back and look at this. I didn't really pay attention to what material the hose was pulling up, so let's see, we'll edit this and edit that. edit this. So in this case, there was no no assigned material, I don't believe. Let me finish that just a minute. And I'm not sure. There it is. It is just a rubber material. So you could actually, I believe, set it up so that it's going to be defined as a different type of rubber just by setting up that material within your material library. I believe that's the case. Very good. Any other questions? In that same manner, that's a very good question. Let's see here. We're asked how would the custom start and end fittings be added? Let's see. Let us edit this hose. And in the same manner, if we were to do, an edit or something new, you simply right click and then browse. You can also, like I said, we've got this no hose fitting. That's just where they start and end are suppressed. So we would browse out. And once again, now we're looking at the existing content center. And here are some of the Parker fittings. It does look like some of this has grown, but we know how Parker is. They've got honestly thousands of different types of fittings. So you would have to publish those if you've got something different than what's currently out of the content center. And let's see here. Yes, Michael, you could. I think you could add in you'd have to add in the material and create basically a new style to add in that PEX tubing. I think you could. Same kind of way. You could do new, and then again, you're going to go here as material. So if you come in and you've got your tubing defined by a given appearance, so on and so forth, you could add those things in. All right. That does take a little bit of time, Andrew, which is why I didn't really show it. It's something that we do cover in that class. Obviously, you create the fitting itself, and just on the part side, once you've created that fitting from the Manage tab, you can come in and publish your component, in this case, tube and pipe. And there are some settings that go along with that, your starting connection, your ending connection, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit, takes a little bit longer time just to set something up. Typically, you probably download something maybe from McMaster Car and begin with that, going through the publish options. But it's not a terribly complicated process. It's just a little bit of time. And let's see. And can that hose length be calculated in a drawing on bill of materials? I believe it is a parameter, so I do believe you could export that to a property and then import that into your parts list or bill of material. Frank has asked, and Frank, that question has been asked quite often. Are there support tracks for moving hoses or flexible tubing? There are, to my knowledge, there's nothing certainly out of the content center. There's nothing out of the box. I have seen a few models of such, although the adapting to the movement is interesting. It would be it's challenging, but it's really neat to see these models put out there. There are some out there that I've seen online. I can't really define or give you a specific place to go look, but I have seen some of the different videos and some of the different vendors that do have models of those that you can download, and then there's some tweaking that has to go on to create the movement. All right. Any other questions?
All right,
Very
Ms.
good.
Ashley, we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. This will conclude our broadcast. If you think of additional questions later, you can simply reply to the confirmation or reminder email you receive from GoToWebinar. We can get those to Kevin or your salesperson or whoever to get your questions answered. Once again, if you could take a few moments to fill out the survey, we would appreciate it. It will just automatically pop up as we close down the session today. And thanks for the presentation, guys. Thank you for attending today's webcast, and have a great day, everybody.